Today we're talking about what happens when the INFJ finally recognizes they're more than just observers. When I first got introduced to INFJs and MBTI, it was the one thing I read over and over again. INFJs are observers. You saw quotes by celebrity INFJs, you saw this as part of descriptions. It was always the same thing. INFJs are observers. And what did I think? I thought, oh, this is so me. That's exactly how I feel. I go through life and it feels like life is just happening outside of me. The problems with such statements that you read over and over again is that it gives you justification to stay the same. Because it is pretty much saying to you, yeah, that's how you are and that's how you're supposed to be. And now after, doing this for so many years, I can tell you, no, that's not how you're supposed to be. It is what our negative side, entails. It is what is part of us, but it's not who we are entirely. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love to just sit back and observe and enjoy life from that perspective. But it's one thing to enjoy something. It's another thing to say that's the only way I can go through life. And the truth is, if you find a great balance between those two aspects, as in you are an observer when you want to relax, when you just want to enjoy your leisure time, but you also take action in a very particular way, that's when you get that life that you always wanted to, which feels exciting, which gives you the opportunity to experience life in a heightened way. That's what we want. That's what I always call the INFJ epic life. Before we get started today, remember, if you haven't done this so far, to download the poster on the 5 pillars to an INFJ epic life. And if you want to take it to the next level, then check out the INFJ epic life audio guide. All the information you find in the links in the description. If you've known me for a while, you know I'm all about taking action, particularly when it comes to INFJs. But when we're talking about being an observer, it's not enough to just say, okay, we need to, stop observing, we need to take action. This is easier than done, and it is so much harder than it actually seems, particularly if other people tell you that. It's like, okay, why don't you just take action? Go for your dreams, do what you want. But it's so much deeper than this. Because when we observe others, we are doing this from a very particular perspective. It has everything to do with our cognitive functions and how we perceive the world. We can assume how other people are feeling. We can also assume how certain emotional states are within groups or within other people, and that in itself gives us the opportunity to feel something and to feel something intensely. Right? This is the combination of NI and FE and actually even TI. So it is a whole mixture of that, right? We can sense what other people are feeling because we're so great at making them feel something through our FE. At the same time, when we pick that information up, we create meaning behind it, right? We have the system building machine of NI, and in combination with TI, we make it mean something. Oh, a person reacted in a certain way. That means they're very sad at that moment. And I know how that feels like because I have created this emotion before. I actually recreate this feeling within myself. That's actually what empaths are, right? It's not just, oh, I feel others' energy. Of course we do. But it is so much more than that. We actually recreate what we think the other person is feeling. Right? We recreate in our mind what we think an emotional atmosphere is like. And the closer those two come together, the easier it is to actually, make an impact on that group. So that is actually one of the main reasons why we are observers, because it allows us to have an emotional experience without participating. It allows us to feel something without the risk of getting judged, without the risk of being disliked, because we don't actually have to, share anything. We just sit back, we're observers, and we get to experience something through others' emotional states. That's why we are so often, attracted to people who have a big emotional state within them. They have some kind of extreme life going on, and that makes us feel something, right? This can be friends, this can be romantic interests, but it is one of those things a lot of INFJs do. And on top of that, if you combine it with our fourth function SE, which is something that we like, but that is hard for us, it is one more reason for us to be observers, right? We don't have to take the step. We don't have to take action. We get to feel something which most other types probably could not feel through just being an observer. And so we get into this place where we think the only way for me to be is to be an observer. Because what is the alternative? First off, I would have to be in motion all the time. I have to take on SE. And that in itself brings so many challenges because once I do this, I'm not able to actually observe so much. If I'm in action, if I'm an SE, I cannot lean into NI so much. It is a combination of those, right? NI and SE. This is the opposite, the polar opposite, but they're connected. It's not like NI and SI. No, NI and SE. When you're in the clouds, when your mind is away from reality, that is exactly the opposite of you doing something in the real world. And you can recognize this when you're in action mode. You cannot observe so much. You cannot create worlds within your mind. You cannot feel so much. So it's always a question of, do I want to be more into SE? And the first response I had, and the first response I hear from many INFJs, is that it's not worth it because there's so much more emotional intensity if you get to do this from an observer standpoint. But the question becomes that just because this feels better in the moment, is this really the thing that's going to make you happier in the long run? And the answer is no. No, it's not. Because every single time we drift off in this observer mode, we detach from reality, we just look at how others are living their life, we always feel like something is missing. Because if you don't feel that, then you're not in observer mode. That doesn't mean that you can't observe. That doesn't mean that you can't appreciate all those nice things that come with that. But there is a balance there of you also tapping into SE. Right? We're never going to stop being INFJs. We're just going to make sure that we balance out our functions. If you do that, yes, you won't be able to experience, that emotional state of others so intensely. Some of you may remember when I have told you about one of my best friends. She's an INFP. And, when we were 20, we got to know each other in college. We started hanging out all the time. And I knew absolutely everything about her. Her emotional states, the kind of art she liked, the kind of music she loved. And I actually fell into her world because it was so emotionally intense, and it allowed me to actually do the things that are not healthy for me, right? We were crutches for each other. We were enabling each other. And now, the more I'm actually focused on my life and focused on not being an observer, I don't have those understandings of her inner world. And on the one hand, it's sad because there's beauty in that, right? To understand others on a deep level. But the price that we're paying for this is that we're not understanding ourselves, right? And this is, of course, very black and white, right? It's not like you don't understand yourself at all and you understand others completely, but you can lean into understanding yourself more, taking actions for yourself. Because as we said, the first part is that it's about taking action. And when you do that, you're losing out on something else. Your focus cannot be on others. So when you start taking action, you're losing that payoff of, just having that short-term success of, I'm feeling something because I'm an observer. But it never allows you to completely tap into your potential. It doesn't allow you to feel life in a much bigger way because it is always through a glass window. It is always through looking into another person's world. And it can never be as intense and as satisfying as your own world can be. We also have to recognize how us not expressing what we want and tapping into FE as our creative function, our second function, we're missing out on, a lot of new experiences. Because imagine it like this. If you like fashion, for example, what does the observer INFJ do? The observer INFJ surrounds him or herself with INFJs who are all about fashion. Or they watch YouTube videos about fashion. They're all about experiencing somebody else being in that world. And that already gives us a satisfaction. An INFJ who actually taps into their FE and their SE, so their extroverted functions, they tap into creating more of a balance. They say, I'm not an observer anymore. they express their sense of fashion. They actually choose things they want to wear. They choose to make a statement. And that in itself has the potential to create something amazing for you. But of course, you have to pay the price, which is you can be judged. You can be judged for your choices. You can be judged for your fashion sense. You can be judged for, like that you're so out there. And this is just like, one example. This also applies to your worldview, your understanding of wrong and right, your sense of morality, your sense of adventure, whatever it may be. When we start expressing ourselves, when we start living out our life, so taking action and showing the world who we are. And when I'm talking about showing the world, it doesn't mean that you have to go on a platform and tell everybody in the world what you're all about. It just means you're not hiding it anymore. You express it one way or another. You give yourself the opportunity to have an outlet. When you do that, you automatically become less of an observer. You don't feel like you're experiencing life through, a glass window. So that might sound very logical, and one could ask themselves, okay, so if this is so clear cut, why aren't more INFJs doing this? They're not doing this because you don't get immediate reward. When you start creating an outfit for yourself in order to show your sense of fashion, or when you share with somebody your political views that are a little bit, more extreme, or you share with somebody, your idea about a new product that you want to create, you're not going to get the response that you were looking for. You're not going to get everybody saying, wow, this is so cool, amazing. And that gives you a positive emotional response, right? It's not like that. So if you start doing things because you expect somebody else to give you the feedback of, oh, this is great, so you feel something again, you're actually back in observer mode. Because think about it. What you're doing is you're again recreating an emotion within yourself that you think somebody else is having. In this example, you think that person over there has a positive reaction to your opinion, to your ideas, whatever it may be. You look at that, you observe that, and you recreate that feeling, right? And again, we're back in observer mode. And even if we could recreate that emotional response from everybody you would, tell your ideas to, or, share your thoughts with, or your sense of fashion, or whatever it may be, it is not going to satisfy you if you're doing this because of the emotional response you would get from others. It just doesn't. Like, this is something I know from experience, not just with me, but, all the INFJs that I've worked with. It's just not enough. And when you have just those two options, we're of course going to go back to, okay, I'm just going to observe. I'm not going to share my, sense of fashion or my ideas. I'm actually going to attach myself to somebody who experienced these things, like, just internally. It feels like people are doing this intrinsically because it makes them feel good and not because they're waiting for somebody to have a reaction to that. Those are the people that, we get hooked on. Those are the people we observe because we love that, emotional response. So what is the solution here? How do we level up? How do we get to the next step? We have to recognize that the only way for us to find something which we continuously would want to actually expand and to continue and to allow us to be even more of who we are is to do something because it intrinsically excites us. And we all have that. It's our way of sharing ourselves with the world. It's how we show up in the world. It's how we take action, as in it's an externally observable fact. You have an idea about your worldview or about morality, then start sharing it one way or another. If you get judged for it, if people like it, none of it matters because you're not doing it for others' reaction. What others think of you is none of your business. You start doing things because they excite you. And if you say, well, nothing excites me, then think about the ways you actually experience emotions through others. In what areas of your life are you an observer? And what would be the next step, how you could do this in a way where it excites you, where you prove to yourself that you like yourself, where you take actions that make you feel like you're doing something amazing, you're doing something cool. You like the person that you're becoming. You like the process around it, and you're not doing it in order for others to have some kind of reaction. Remember this example that I told you that we're actually observers to people who seem to do things out of intrinsic motivation? They love, just sharing their sense of fashion, or they love to share their ideas of this is morally right or wrong, or whatever it may be, their way of living life that just excites us. It excites us because it excites them, and because they're not looking for your reaction. They're doing it one way or another. And that's what people get excited about. That's what we get excited about. The question is, how can we get to a place where we get excited about what we intrinsically want and process and get to continuously grow with, right? These are the things that allow us to get out of this observer mode. Because if you would go through life and you would be an observer and you feel like, oh, this is perfect, there's nothing missing in my life, I would be the last person who would even, make a comment about it. But it's not. We feel like something isn't right. We feel that we're living life through a glass window. And this is not the way life has to be. You can become somebody who becomes the leading character of your movie, who is taking action towards the life you want. And every single step, every single day that you're taking this on makes you more excited because you are giving yourself the feedback of, I'm proud of the person that you're becoming. And you need less and less validation from others that you're doing the right thing. Because on the one hand, you're not waiting for their emotional response so you would feel something emotionally. No, you're actually creating things that excite you intrinsically. And second of all, you get excited about the process. You get excited about the progress. You get excited about taking the action and the person that you're becoming. And when you start doing this, you become hooked on this. And this is a positive addiction. It's an addiction that allows you to, be yourself, that allows you to live freely and abundantly and without feeling guilty for who you are. And hopefully the way INFJs connect nowadays allows us to recognize that, yeah, I too can be myself. Because of course it's better if you have somebody mirroring how you think. It allows us to have some kind of vision of, oh, if they can do it, I can do it. And there's a recognition of, thinking patterns there. So I'm always excited when I see that our INFJ community grows so continuously because it allows us to have freedom into saying, yes, I'm going to take action. I'm going to be the leading role. I'm not going to be an observer anymore. Remember, if you haven't done this so far, then download the poster on the 5 pillars to an INFJ epic life. And if you want to take it to the next level, you say, now is my time. I'm going to make it happen. Then get the INFJ Epic Life audio guide. All the information you find in the links in the description. And if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then watch the video when the INFJ finally recognizes their mind-blowing nature. This is what happens.